Naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Jaya Jaya Śrī Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Vande Guru Nisha Bhakta, Nisha Nisha Avatarakan, Tat Prakasham Tat Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Sangyakam. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Nityananda Sahoditau, Gaurudaye Pushpavanatau, Chitrau Sandau Tamonudau. Granthira Arambha Kori Mangala Charana, Guru Vaishnava Bhagavan Tinira Smarana Haya Vigana Vinashana, Anayasa Safal Nija Vanchita Purana, Jaya Jaya Kripamoy Jagatiranath Sarva Jagatira Kuru Shubhadrishti Pad Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaham. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Yara Asha Caitanya-caritāmṛta Kahe Krishna Dasa. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Yara Asha Caitanya-caritāmṛta Kahe Krishna Dasa. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Yara Asha Caitanya-caritāmṛta Kahe Krishna Dasa. Panchatatvakam Krishnam Bhatta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you so much, dear worshipable devotees, for joining. We are reading Śrī Caitanya-caritāmṛta today, so as we planned, for the remainder of the year 2021, which has about a few weeks left, we will read Caitanya-caritāmṛta and then to make some progress here. And we just completed Canto 9 of Srimad-Bhāgavatam for those who are joining regularly. And if we recall, in our last discussion about Caitanya-caritāmṛta, we were at Rd Leela. Caitanya-caritāmṛta has three divisions, Adi, Madhya, and Antya. So basically the division of Lord Chaitanya's pastime from up till 16 years, 32 and 48 approximately. This is how Caitanya-caritāmṛta's different sections are given by the great Śrīla Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So we are reading chapter 4 of Rd Leela, which is entitled The Confidential Reasons of the Lord's Appearance. So we have read till text number 64 so far, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Is that correct? Okay, so that's correct. So 64 we have covered, talking about the different energies of the Lord, talking about the different, how the two becomes, Radha Krishna are one, but become two, and again become one. This is the Gaura Tattva. Very, very confidential. And this whole thing is the explanation of text number 1.5 of Rd Leela. So let's quickly try to understand what is 1.5. Is basically the verse where Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Ladini Shaktirasma Ekat Manav Api Bahuvi Puradeha Bhedam Gatau Tu Chaitanyakyam Paraktam Adhuna Tadvam Chakyam Apatam Radha Bhavadyuti Swalitham Mauni Krishna Swarupam. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are the one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Sri Radharani, and he is Krishna himself. So it's just to give a kind of a recap where we were last time, so that we can understand better what we are going to read. Because we didn't read for many weeks, so now we will proceed to our actual reading for today. Mata pita sthana graha shayasana ara e saba krishnera shuddha satvera vikara. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Krishna's mother, father, abode, house, bedding, seats, and so on are all transformations of Shuddha Sattva. Purport. Lord Krishna's father, mother, and household affairs are all displayed in the same Vishuddha Sattva existence. A living entity situated in the status of pure goodness can understand the form, qualities, and other features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna consciousness begins on the platform of pure goodness. Although there is a faint realization of Krishna at first, Krishna is actually realized as Vasudeva, the absolute proprietor or omnipotence, or the prime predominating deity of all potencies. When the living entity is situated in the Vishuddha Sattva, transcendental to the three material modes of nature, he can perceive the form, quality, and other features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his service attitude. Through his or her service attitude. The status of pure goodness is the platform of understanding, for the Supreme Lord is always in spiritual existence. Krishna is always all spiritual. Aside from the parents of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the other paraphernalia of his existence are also essentially a manifestation of Sannidhi Shakti, or a transformation of the Vishuddha Sattva. To make this more clear, it may be said that this Sandhini Shakti of the internal potency maintains and manifests all the variegatedness of the spiritual world. In the kingdom of God, the Lord's servants and maidservants, his consorts, his father, mother, and everything else are all transformation of the spiritual existence of the Sandhini Shakti. The existential Sandhini Shakti in the external potency similarly expands all the variegatedness of the material cosmos, from which we can have a glimpse of the spiritual world. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, dear worshipful devotees, for joining today to read together this wonderful Śrī Caitanya-caritāmṛta given by Śrī Krishna Goswami. So yes, we discussed, I think in the previous few, if you remember, his guest Prashant Prabhu also joined and gave the class about the energies of the Lord. Primarily, we were talking about the Sandhini, which is the existential potency. That's what we are discussing here, that all the paraphernalia, all the relationship, so the variegatedness, the bed of the Supreme Lord, the chamara, the bedding, the seats, everything, the house, spiritual abode, father, mother, everything is here said in pure transcendental mode. That means it's above the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and not only in Shuddha or Satogun, yeah. Not only just in Satogun or mode of goodness, but Vishuddha Sattva, pure goodness. Shuddha Sattvera Vikar. Sabha Krishna Shuddha Sattvera Vikar. Sabha means all these items. Mata, Pita, Sthana, place, Graha, home, Shaya or Asana. Bedding, Shayan, Asana, place to sit or sitting place, seats. All these are manifestations of the Krishna's internal energy, primarily referring to the Sandhini Shakti. So we should never, in spiritual world, we also have learned many times that everything is transcendental. The seeds are transcendental. The ant is transcendental. What to speak of Krishna's mother, father? Everything is chinmay. Everything is animate. Whether it's a waterfall, whether the birds, whether it's the creeper, whether it's the Govardhan, they're all serving in different rasas. Like how one may ask, how is the seed serving? How is the seed serving? Is the Lord. Is the seed serving? Which rasa is the seed serving? The Lord.
Shanto.
Shantya, yes, excellent. It's the rasa of neutrality. So these are the different ways, the different paraphernalia in the Sandhini Shakti. Let's read the next verse, 66. Anyone wants to read this? Yes, Apple too.
Hare Kṛṣṇa devoted Pranam, all glories to Śrīla Prabhupada, text 66. Satyam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam Jodiyate Tatra Puman Pabrito Satya Chatasmin Bhagavan Vasudevo Hadakhojo Me Manusha Vidhiyate. Translation part by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Śrīla Prabhupada with joy. The condition of pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva, in which the Supreme Person Godhead is revealed without any covering, is called Vasudev. In that pure state, the Supreme Godhead, who is beyond the material senses and who is known as Vasudev, is perceived by my mind. Purport. The text from Srimad-Bhāgavatam 4.3.23, spoken by Lord Shiva when he condemned Daksha, the father of Shruti, as an opponent of Vishnu, confirms beyond a doubt that Lord Krishna, his name, his fame, his qualities, and everything in connection with his paraphernalia exists in the Sandhini Shakti of Lord's internal potency. So here Lord is mentioned as Vasudev because he is revealed without any covering. So I was listening to sorry. Pran Govinda Prabhu, right? Prabhuji? Anyway, so he's telling that why before reading Gita we say Om Namo Vasudevaya 3 times, because here the Supreme Lord is uncovered totally and we know him through the knowledge, and this knowledge we're getting through Gita, Bhagavatam. So that's before reciting Gita, then we recite the mantra Om Namo Bhagavata Vasudevaya. So he's totally unrevealing, totally revealed. Sorry, and Krishna, the Supreme Person Godhead, who is definitely has to be Shuddha Sattva in the spiritual world, where even the neutral things are in Shuddha Sattva, because all associated with Lord Krishna. Back to Prabhuji. Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, thank you so much. In the S4 323, which is this, as we have discussed, that Chaitanya Caritāmṛta has close to 500 verses directly from the Bhāgavatam. So this is one of those many verses. And Chaitanya Caritāmṛta also has many verses from the Bhagavad Gita. This verse has a very detailed purport in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, spoken by the great Mahajan, the great Lord Shiva himself. In the previous verse, there is a very important line in the purport which we read, but I didn't emphasize over there. The Lord, he can perceive the form when the living entity is in Vishuddha Sattva, which is also discussed here, transcendental to the three modes of nature, then he can perceive the form of the Lord. So many people say, well, show me God. Many people say, prove that God is there. Many people's the idea is that if we are covered with the three modes, how can we see the absolute truth, which is beyond the three modes? So one cannot perceive. For example, one time Gaur-Gopal Prabhu came to our college and gave a very nice explanation about this. That in the material world, if we have to measure distance, we need an inch tape ruler or some kind of device. To measure the weight, we need a weighing scale. We cannot measure the weight with the inch tape or a measuring tape. We cannot measure the sound with an inch tape, or we cannot measure the speed with a weighing scale. So even to measure material things, we need specific tools. So how do we understand the Supreme Lord through our material eyes? We cannot understand. But those whose eyes are anointed with the love of Godhead, Premanda Charita Bhakti Vilochanena, that means they are in the Vishuddha Sattva state. Love of God means Vishuddha Sattva. They are not hankering, lamenting. They're not in Sattvagun, Rajagun, Tamagun. They're in Shuddha Sattva. Santa Sadeva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. Those people, those devotees are always seeing the Supreme Lord. To them, the Lord reveals, and He is perceived by those spiritual senses, the spiritual eyes. We have to spiritualize our eyes to make it spiritualized. Indeed, Krishna gave Arjuna the special eyes to behold. So this is our whole process to transcendentalize our consciousness. Right now, it's covered with so many layers of dirt, of lust, anger, greed. So the process is to remove that dirt, to Trigunya Nishaya Veda Nishtraigunya Bhavarjuna. Oh Arjuna, become free from the three modes. Then you'll be able to understand. So this is the whole message of Gita, Chaitanya Caritāmṛta, Bhāgavatam. Because the Lord is beyond. What's that famous verse? Na bhavet grihad indriyaha. What's that? What's the first line? Sevan mukhe jiva dasvayam. Atah Krishna namadi na bhavet grihad indriya. Sevan mukhe jiva dos swayam spurti adaha. Krishna atha Krishna namadi, nam adi, nam rupa guna lila adi, etc. Na bhavet grihad indriya. We cannot perceive through our material senses, which the eyes want to see some nice thing, the ears want to hear Bollywood music. The senses are covered with material consciousness. How can we understand the Supreme? But when we start the process of chanting, reading, hearing, serving Krishna, Smaranam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, then we will be able to perceive it. Swayam spurti adaha. Then swayam the spurti will come. Like when the person is hungry and eats food, then we don't need to ask for a certificate that prove that you are not hungry. It's like self-evident. So those devotees who are experiencing that rasa, it's quite perceptible from their consciousness, from their enthusiasm, from their eagerness to chant, to read, to hear, etc. So this is Vishuddha Sattva platform. Okay, let's keep reading. 67. Yes, Lakshya wants to read. Please go ahead.
Yes, Prabhuji. Krishna Bhagavata Nana Samvitera Sara Brahma Narandika Sabatara Parivara translation and purpose. The essence of the Samvit potency is knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Lord Krishna. All other kinds of knowledge, such as the knowledge of Brahman or its components. The activities of the Samvit Shakti produce the effect of cognition. Both the Lord and the living entities are cognizant. Śrī Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has full knowledge of everything everywhere, and therefore there are no hindrances to his cognition. He can have knowledge merely by glancing over an object, whereas innumerable impediments block the cognition of ordinary living beings. The cognition of the living beings has three divisions: direct knowledge, indirect knowledge, and perverted knowledge. Sense perception of material objects by the mundane senses, such as the eye, ear, nose, and hand, always produces definitely perverted knowledge. This illusion is a presentation of the material energy, which is influenced by the Samvit Shakti in a perverted manner. Negative cognition of an object beyond the reach of sense perception is the way of indirect knowledge, which is not altogether imperfect, but which produces only fragmentary knowledge in the form of the impersonal spiritual realization and monism. But when the Samvit fact of cognition is enlightened by the Hladini potency of the same eternal energy, they work together, and only thus can one attain knowledge of the personality of Godhead. The Samvit Shakti should be maintained in that state. Material knowledge and indirect spiritual knowledge are byproducts of the Samvit Shakti. Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Thank you, Lakshya Prabhu. So after the Sandhini Shakti, we're discussing about the Samvit. So Satchit Ananda, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. Namam Ishvaram Satchidananda Rupam. Satchitanand Sat is the Sandhini, the existential potency. The Chit potency is the what you're discussing now here, the Samvit potency. Vedavit, vit means to know, knowledge. Vedavit. Anyone knows where the word Vedavit comes? Anyone? It's a famous verse of Bhagavad Gita. $15. Now, anyone?
Vedesha sarver ahameva vedyam.
Yes, what's the full thing? That's correct.
Krishna Prabhuji, is it like Vedas? Sorry.
That's correct. That's the third line. There are two lines above and one line at the bottom.
Sarvasya chaham visanivishto.
But Lakshya will tell.
I remember the last line, Prabhuji.
Okay, tell.
I think it's something like Eva Ved, like Veda Ved Eva Chaham or something like that.
Yes, that's correct.
Sarvasya chaham visanivishto mataspati ganam apohanam cha. Vedesha sarvam aham eva vedo vedantakrit vedavid eva chaham.
read the with so that we can link to the with, is to know. So he's a knowledge, he's a knower of all the Vedas, the source of all the Vedas. So here Samvit, he's or the Chit potency, the cogni, the potency of which has the effect of cognition or knowledge about the material world, knowledge about the spiritual world, the indirect knowledge. So a very nice line Prabhupada is mentioning. When the cognition is enlightened by the Ladini potency or the pleasure potency of the internal energy, all these are internal energy, they work together. It's very, very important, the knowledge potency, to understand our sambandha. Who am I? Who's God? What's my relationship? Why I'm here? What's my destination? What's the process of bhakti? Who's Guru? Why I should take shelter of Guru? What are scriptures? Why I should read them? What's my goal? What are the do's and don'ts? All this is part of the cognition. So the Samvit potency or the Chit potency of the Lord. Let's read the next verse, 68. Mataji's today.
So did you ask me to read?
Yes, please, Mataji.
Okay, then Dandat Pranam. Ladinira Shara Prema, Prema Shara Bhava, Bhavera Purana, Shakasta Nama Mahabhava. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The essence of Ladini potency is love of God. The essence of love of God is emotion, bhava, and the ultimate development of emotion is Mahabhav. The product of Ladini Shakti is love of Godhead, which has two divisions, namely pure love of Godhead and adulterated love of Godhead. Only when the Ladini Shakti emanates from Śrī Krishna and is bestowed upon the living entities, living beings to attract him, does the living being become a pure lover of God. But when the same Ladini Shakti is adulterated by the external material energy and emanates from the living being, it does not attract Krishna. On the contrary, the living being becomes attracted by the glamour of the material energy. At that time, instead of becoming mad with love of Godhead, the living being becomes mad after material sense enjoyment. And because of his association with the qualitative mode of material nature, is captivated by its interaction of distressful, unhappy feelings. Back to you, Prabhu. Please add. I'm not feeling very well today.
Krishna, thank you for reading. So, the Sukino service and Tinayama. So, I hope you feel better soon, Mataji. So, the third potency, Ladini Shakti. The pleasure-giving potency. The real pleasure comes from the source of all pleasure. Lord Sri Ram, Lord Sri Krishna, the source of all attraction. That's in the pure form, the Ladini Shakti. But the same Ladini Shakti, so all these Shaktis, when influenced or covered by external energy, as mentioned here, when Ladini Shakti is adulterated by the external, then one Jiva thinks my home will give me happiness, my wealth, my job, my wife, my husband, my children, my iPhone, my property, my new car, my forgetting relationship with the Lord. Krishna bhuli se jivanadir bahirmukh, atev maya tare de samsara dukh. But the real happiness does not come. What comes? Distress, unhappiness, false enjoyment, so-called enjoyment, which ultimately ends up in suffering. What's that verse? Yehi sansparshaja bhoga dukkhayo nevayavati adi antavantu konteya nateshu ramati buddha. Intelligent people don't take part in the pleasures derived from the sense perception, which are just a cause of suffering. Adi, Antavantu, Kantaya, they have a beginning and they have an end. So, what do intelligent people take part in? Machchita madgata prana bodhyanta parasparam kathayanta shamam nityam dushyanti cha ramanti cha. They take part in glorifying the real source of all pleasure. When we glorify Krishna, we get happiness. When we glorify some hero, Hollywood, Bollywood, then it's just very dry and like the adulterated or the perverted reflection of the true energy. Same with the knowledge. One can get knowledge about Krishna, knowledge about Shastra, knowledge about the relationship with the Lord. But at the same time, one can be puffed up with the degrees of the material world and gets a lot of degrees, but ultimately they end up all in zero. Without the one of Krishna, all the degrees are just zeros. Degree, the accomplishments, beauty, wealth, name, fame, position, pride, scholarship, learning. All these are just zeros if we don't have the one of Bhakti. So Jiva is captivated. So the real thing is the pleasure-giving potency that's mentioned in this verse. 68, Ananda. Nanda ki Ananda bhayo, Jaikananda. Nanda, Ananda. Nandana, Krishna's name. One who gives joy to Nanda is Nandana, Krishna. Yashoda Nandana. So many names of Krishna are connected to Ananda because he Ananda Buddhivardhana. The holy name gives all joy. Okay, let's read the next verse, 69. Anyone wants to read? Hasn't got chance yet.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can I read?
Yes, please, Mataji.
All Krishna Srila Prabhupada, Dandavat Pranam everyone. Text 69. Mahabhav Sharupa Sri Radha Thakurani Sharva Guno Khoni Krishna Kanto Shiromani. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Radha Thakurani is the embodiment of Mahabhava. She is the repository of all good qualities and the crest jewel among all the lovely consorts of Lord Krishna. Purport. The unadulterated action of the Ladini Shakti is displayed in the dealings of the damsels of Braja and Srimati Radharani, who is the topmost participant in that transcendental group. The essence of the Ladini Shakti is love of Godhead. The essence of love of Godhead is bhava or transcendental sentiment, and the highest pitch of that bhava is called Mahabhava. Srimati Radharani is the personified embodiment of these three aspects of transcendental consciousness. She is therefore the highest principle in love of Godhead and is the supreme lovable object of Sri Krishna. So here in the translation and purport, Prabhupada is explaining nicely that who is Sri Radha Thakurani, Radharani, and she is belongs to the Mahabhava. There are three essence of Ladini Shakti, and among them, Srimati Radharani is has that Mahabhava of this transcendental aspect of three aspects of transcendental consciousness, and this Srimati Radharani's Mahabhava, this pure love, and he can control Lord Krishna, even Lord Krishna. We read in Nectar of Devotion that Lord Krishna is also controlled by this pure love of Srimati Radharani, Sri Ladini Shakti of Radharani, and she is the highest and lovable objects of Lord Sri Krishna. Back to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So text number, just to give a brief background, we are reading about the position of Srimati Radharani. Why is Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explaining the position of Srimati Radharani? Because in text number 58, he said, to make the glory of Lord Chaitanya, I shall now first describe the position of Radha and Krishna. Because Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna Doi Deha, Eka Atma Doi Deha Dhari. They are, and then they come as Śrī Krishna Caitanya, Radha Krishna, Nai Anya. So Śrī Krishna Caitanya Mahāprabhu is the two becomes one. But the one becomes two, and then the two becomes again one, and that's the Lord Chaitanya. So that two, the Radha Krishna. So first he's explaining about the position of Sri Radharani from text number 59 to 95, almost 40 verses there. These are all verses talking about ultimately to help us understand Radharani is not an ordinary person, which many people think, which many people just comment why Krishna did this, why he lifted, why he did dance with the gopis, why Radharani's name is not in Gita, why Radharani's name is not in Bhāgavatam, and so many questions. But Chaitanya Caritāmṛta has so clearly Radharani's name is mentioned. Why? Because Chaitanya Caritāmṛta is even beyond the Bhāgavatam. Of course, Prabhupada's purport help us to understand any verse, any book, any page we open. Prabhupada's purport will help us understand. Help us means anyone. One may be a totally neophyte, one will be able to understand the essence of Bhakti Yoga. So Mahabhava, talking about the Mahabhava, the topmost manifestation, the zenith of Bhava. Bhava is pure love of Godhead, pure Ladini Shakti, pure, unadulterated, concentrated love. Swarupa, the personification, is Śrī Radha Thakurani. Sarva Guna Khani, Guna ki Khan. Khan is a mind. And she is the embodiment of all the good qualities, the embodiment of love of Godhead. So we can certainly pray to Srimati Radharani that you are the embodiment, Swarupa, of all the great qualities. Please shower your mercy upon us. Please shower that tinge of drop of that ocean of love of Godhead, even just one drop of that nectar. We would be so blessed. So we can certainly pray. Because one who has minds of those qualities and minds of love of God, will certainly be able to give. One who has no love of Godhead, one who how can that person give love of Godhead to others? Right? So only one who has love of Godhead can give to others. That's what all the acharyas also say. Krishna tomara dite paro. Tomara shakatiya jo Vaishnava thokare. Dayare sagara idase karuna kore. So Krishna se tomara, Krishna dite pare, tomara shakatiya jo. Krishna is yours. If you say, oh, I'm giving, Krishna is basically a property of his devotees. If the devotees say, I'm giving Krishna prem to a dog, the dog will become mad in Krishna prem. And then Krishna has to fulfill that because his devotee has said. And there are so many examples, like Shivananda Sen in this case, in the Bengal Yatra, because Shivananda Sen cared for the dog and got his mercy, the mercy of devotee. Lord Chaitanya gave him his remnants, the coconut pulp, and then made him chant pure love of Godhead, pure name of Lord, and the dog was crying in ecstasy, entertain the spiritual body. And like that, there are so many examples. Narad Muni, so many disciples from different backgrounds, But a devotee like Narada Muni says, then Krishna is bound, has to give. Like Damodar is a classic example. Nalkuver Manigri, but the mercy of Lord, but the mercy of Narada Muni. So we can certainly pray to Śrī Radha Thakurani, who is the embodiment of Mahabhava, pure, unalloyed, unadulterated, the zenith of love of Godhead, who is the ocean, the mind, the reservoir of all the good qualities. Krishna Kānta, Shiromani, Shiromani, Bhakta Shiromani, Prahlad, Shiromani, Sarki Mani, the crest jewel, puts on the forehead. Shira is head, Mani means jewel. So amongst the lovers of Godhead, Krishna Kānta, those who love Krishna, Śrī Radharani is one of the names, Krishna Kānta Shiromani. Nice verse we can remember about Radharani. It's a very nice verse and easy to remember. Let's do it one or a few times so we can remember. Mahabhava Swarupa Śrī Radha Thakurani Sarva Guna Khani Krishna Kānta Shiromani. What few devotees want to recite? Maybe after seeing or without seeing, whatever is easy. Yes, Mataji.
Ji Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Nityaṁ, all devotees, all grace to Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Mahabhava Swarupa Śrī Radha Thakurani Sarva Guna Khani Krishna Kānta Shiromani.
Who has memorized it? Let's break down further. Mahabhava, Mahabhava Swarupa. First, the quality. She is the embodiment. Swarupa, Rupa means personification or embodiment of Mahabhava. Mahabhava Swarupa. Who is that personality? Śrī Radha Thakurani. Thakur is master. So she's the Thakurani. She is the real mistress or mistress. Śrī Radharani, Thakurani. And then what is shared about her? About her qualities. She is the ocean or the mind of all qualities. Sarva Guna Khani. Khan. The Khan is basically, you may have heard Koile ki Khan. But imagine Guna Khan. All the good qualities are there. Love of Godhead, gratitude, tolerance, patience, mercy, compassion. Just imagine we are in that mind of that good qualities. And Radharani is compared to here, like the mind of all the good qualities. So, Sarva Guna Khani. And what's the last is about her quality as the best of the all lovers of Krishna. Krishna Kānta. Kānta means lovers. Krishna Kānta is those who love Krishna. And she's the crest jewel amongst those. So she is the best amongst the lovers of Krishna. So now would someone like to recite without seeing these 4 lines?
Can I do?
Yes, Mataji.
Mahabhava Swarupa Śrī Radha Thakurani Sarva Guna Khani Krishna Kānta Shiromani.
Wonderful. Anyone else? Not very difficult. All the words you know. Kabir Prabhu, want to try?
Mahabhava Swarupa Śrī Radha Thakurani Sarva Guna Khani Krishna Kānta Shiromani.
Oh, excellent. Anyone else feeling inspired with the pleasure of Radharani? We can recite this verse every day. Meditate upon Radharani and ask her to shower some mercies, some good qualities, some Mahabhava. Anyone? One last time. And Prabhu, want to try? Don't worry, we'll help. And if we miss a few words.
You can try, Prabhuji.
Yes, please.
Sarva Bhava
Mahabhava.
Mahabhava Sarva Mahabhava পণ্য শ্রী রাধা ঠাকুরানী সর্বগুণ খনি কৃষ্ণকান্ত শ্রী রাধা শ্রী চূড়ামণি
Shiromani. Shiromani. Yeah, Shiromani is also fine, actually.
Prabhuji, I can do that.
Yes, please.
Mahabhava Swarupa Sri Radha Thakurani Sarvaguna Khani Krishna Kānta Shiromani.
Wonderful. See, not very difficult unless you're so scholarly. Okay, we'll read one last verse and then we'll pause for today. Anyone who hasn't not got chance yet and really wants to read, this is the time to unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, may I?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Text number 70. Tayora api ubhayora madhye radhika sarva adhika mahabhava swarupeyam gunera ativariyasi. Translation. Of these two gopis, Radharani and Chandravati, Srimati Radharani is superior in all respects. She is the embodiment of Mahabhav and she surpasses all in good qualities. Purport. This is a quotation from Srila Rupa Goswami's Ujjvala Neelamani, Radha Parakarana 3. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Back to you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So we know that there is the Radharani side and the Chandravali side, like the left party and the right party. In the material world, the parties means division, but that division is based on envy, hatred, proving I am better, you are bad, I am good, or I am better than you. But in the spiritual world, the division is also to enhance the love of God. So Radharani the fight is also transcendental. It's hard for us to understand that how division is there to enhance the love, how the fight can enhance the love. But the Radharani's Man Lila, Radharani getting angry with Krishna, etc. Multiple esoteric pastimes, which I'm not qualified to understand. But you have to understand that Radharani is the best amongst all the gopis, all the lovers of Krishna. Krishna Kānta Shiromani. We just read Krishna Kānta Shiromani. So she's the embodiment of Mahabhava. So we just read that. Mahabhava Swarupeyam. Same here. Mahabhava Swarupa. Embodiment. Swarupa. Rupa means form. Guner Patir Pati Variyasi. So very similar, the best of all. So over there the word used was Sarva Guna Khani. They're quite similar words. There the contrast is between Radharani and Chandravali, who are both lovers of Krishna, but Sri Radharani is, we all know, the foremost amongst them. Okay, so we'll continue with this discussion more. But before we wrap up, any comments or additions or questions for now?
So, Prabhuji, in the previous verse, Srimati Radharani is the personified embodiment of these three aspects of transcendental consciousness. So these are the three aspects, means Shandhini, Shambhit and Ladini.
That's correct.
Thank
you. Correct. That's Prabhuji. Yes. And they all, in a pure devotee, they all have to interact. In the last verse, we were discussing about, but when the samvit factor of recognition is enlightened by the Ladini potency, so we discussed the interaction of samvit and the Ladini. And of course, the Sandhini potency. So Sandhini potency is using the paraphernalia in the service of the Lord. The paraphernalia is there. The mobile phone is also kind of in one way the paraphernalia. But in the external energy, covered with external energy. So in the spiritual world also there is paraphernalia, the seats. One can use one's bed for so many things. One can use one's table for so many things, laptop for so many things. But to use things for the right purpose is also Krishna consciousness. So, but one has the right knowledge to use the right things for the right conclusion to attain Krishna Prema. That is basically one way we can understand the combination. And Radharani is the crest jewel amongst those to use. She is the personified embodiment of all these. Basically, to give pleasure to Krishna, the complete knower, and all the other, also other gopis, etc., Lakshmi, etc., expansions of Sri Radharani as well. So yes, here the three is yes, the three internal energies. Satchidananda.
Prabhuji.
Yes, please.
So here Ladini Shakti, is the three Sambit, Sandhini and Ladini, or that because here in the purport it's written the essence of the Ladini Shakti is there are three kinds: love of Godhead. The essence of love of Godhead is bhava or transcendental sentiment, and the highest pitch of that bhava is called Mahabhava. And there is Srimati Radharani is the personified embodiment of this three transcendental consciousness. So is that three means this among the in the Ladini Shakti there is three parts. Is that the one explained here, Prabhupada? Because it's not mentioning about the other two Shakti, only Ladini Shakti.
That's a very good point, Mataji. Thank you. And I beg to pardon myself. So you're probably what you said is right. So I'm sorry, I maybe misspoke. You're right. I think it refers to this, the three aspects here mentioned here. So sorry. Thank you for reading so scrutinizingly. It's very nice. So the bhava, Mahabhava, and prema, right?
Yes. Prema, Bhava, and Mahabhava. Love of Godhead, Bhava, and Mahabhava.
Right, so prema, Bhava, Mahabhava. Good point. Thank you. What do Mataji and Prabhu say about this point? Any comments, Prabhuji, Mataji? Yes, I think it's quite clear. Of these three aspects of transcendental consciousness. But nonetheless, also, it is not incorrect either to, of course, in this verse, we understand it's referring to the Ladini, but it's not incorrect to say that she is basically those three energies also. Radharani is like the superior to the Supreme Lord in one way. So she is the Supreme Bhagavan, actually. So that statement is not incorrect per se, but in this verse, it's more relevant to the three forms: prema, love of Godhead, condensed love of Godhead, essence, like the milk condensed is cream, malai is bhava, right? The essence, the condensed, the essence of the essence of the essence is Mahabhava, the really thick cream, that pure, totally unadulterated, the Mahabhava is Radha.
So take 68 in the Sanskrit also says Ladini's Shar Prem, text 68, Ladini's Shar Prem, Premoshar Bhav, Bhaber Param Kashta Nam Mahabhav. Text 68.
Very nice. Good, Mataji. Good. We have Bengali experts here, not a Bengali today. So good. I also like to read and understand, at least I can't speak that nice like all of you. But really, yeah. So, Prema, Bhava, and Mahabhava. Nice. Perfect. Okay, thank you for the clarification, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay, so we'll pause here. Tantra Śrī Caitanya-caritāmṛta ki Jai, Śrī Krishna Goswami ki Jai, Śrī Prabhupada ki Jai, Srimati bhāgavata-sevayā ki Jai. Thank you so much. Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Thank you, Prabhupada.